And welcome to Buffalo Rumblings Live. My name is Matt Warren. I'm happy to be joined tonight by Brian Galliford, the editor-in-chief of BuffaloRumblings.com. Say hi, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Nerd. We're here to talk about the first round of the NFL Draft, which is going to be going on tonight. It's the Super Bowl for the Buffalo Bills and their fans pretty much every year.
That's mean.
Oh, are you excited, Brian? I know I'm excited.
I was super excited when I woke up at like 5 o'clock this morning, and now it's 7 o'clock, and I'm just ready for round one to be done.
Be done? It has not even begun yet. What time did the first round get done last year? Somewhere around 11 o'clock, wasn't it?
It was extremely late, yes. And then we do it again tomorrow and again Saturday. Guys, I love the draft. It's awesome, but being on this side of it, it is grueling. So if I'm punchy this weekend, I apologize up front.
Wow, the preemptive apology. All right, well, let's get talking about this. What's the newest and latest scuttlebutt at One Bills Drive, Brian?
Well, seconds before we went live, Tim Graham from the Buffalo News tweeted that the Bills are working under the assumption that they're going to be staying at number 9, despite weeks worth of speculation that they were considering trading up. It appears considerably less likely tonight that they will be doing that. The other major piece of reporting that went on today came from WGR 550's Joe Buscaglia, who set the internet on fire when he reported that the team was leaning towards, or not leaning towards, but highly considering LSU wideout Odell Beckham Jr., along with North Carolina tight end Eric Ebron, with their number 9 pick. They have a couple of other guys in mind. Jake Matthews is one of the 4 guys that they would pick if they slide. In the likely event that doesn't happen, it's looking like, from what Joe is hearing, they will be picking between Ebron and Beckham. And I'm going to go on a limb and say that a few Bills fans will be upset by that.
Why?
I'm not particularly sure. I don't think that people have been considering Beckham just because he's not the prototypical wideout that everyone sort of assumed the Bills need, and they assume correctly, by the way. They do need a size receiver. But Beckham is the next best thing. He's like Sammy Watkins light. He's smaller. He is not as good with the ball in the air, but that's not a disparaging thing because Watkins is an elite prospect. Beckham is very good all around. He plays bigger than his 5'11". He's actually just shy of 6 feet tall. He's very explosive with the ball in his hands. He can run after the catch. He can return kicks. Not that that's a huge thing for the Bills, but it just adds to his value. He's one of the hottest names in the draft right now. A lot of people think it might be a smokescreen that the Bills are putting this out sort of the way they put out the Tavon Austin rumor last year to get teams working to trade up with them. That's very possible, but going back to what Joe said, he's a legitimate option tonight. I think a lot of Bills fans are upset with the idea of choosing between a controversial tight end prospect and a receiver that no one even really considered an option just because of his physical attributes. And if it does come to that, get down to that choice, I think there will be fans that are excited. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of Bills fans out there who like Beckham, who like Ebron, but it will be a highly contentious comment section. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so if the Bills do stay at number 9, as Tim Graham has suggested, who else could they pick other than the guys you mentioned? I mean, are guys going to fall out of that, upper echelon of prospects?
Maybe. I mean, it's at this point, there are so many scenarios that have been played out in mock drafts, and even just today, within the last 12 hours, the speculation has sort of hit a fever pitch. And at this point, there are dozens of trades, hypothetical trades that make sense that could happen, that could cause someone to slide. But I think if the Bills are playing their odds, they're betting against Watkins or Jadeveon Clowney or Khalil Mack or Matthews being available when they pick. Joe did leave open the possibility that they could trade up a few spots if one of them slid, say, out of the top 5, to go up and get one of those guys without paying through the nose to do it. But, again, all indications point to them staying put right now.
So if they do trade up, I know Joe was talking about like pick 4 or pick 5 with the Browns and the Raiders, especially pick 5 because the Raiders we're talking about moving down a lot. What do you think it might take to get up there? Are we talking about giving up a first-round pick next year? Are we talking about just a second round this year plus some other like back-end stuff? What are we talking about?
Well, I mean, it would have taken a ton to get up to where they thought they were going to be going, or where everyone thought they were going to be going yesterday. They would have had to give up a 2015 first rounder and maybe even a 2016 to get up to number 1 or 2. That's looking unlikely. It was probably always unlikely that they were going to go that high, and especially that they were going to pay that price. If they do move up, they will definitely be out the number 41 overall selection tomorrow night. If they only trade up 2 or 3 spots, you might see them give up 73, or maybe next year's 2 or something like that. I think what they would try to do is avoid giving up that future 1. Obviously, they'd be giving up this year's first-round pick as well to move up, but I don't think they will consider moving up for, maybe an Evans or a Matthews, guys who are sort of pseudo-elite, not considered the cream of the crop, but are right on the edge of it maybe. I don't think they'd want to give up a future first-round pick to get one of those guys.
Okay. We know that Doug Whaley said that there was, 6 elite draft prospects. Those were his words, not mine. You called them pseudo-elite. Are those the same guys we're talking about? He wouldn't trade up into the 5 to get, say, the second wide receiver off the board, you're saying?
I sort of separated into 2 groups. The elite would be Clowney, Mack, and Watkins, and Greg Robinson, the tackle from Auburn. Those are the 4 guys that are, at this point, sort of the consensus top 4. They may not go top 4, but they're sort of the consensus top 4. And then Evans and Matthews, the Texas A&M guys, they're who I consider the pseudo-elite guys, really, really strong prospects that I'm not sure the Bills would value as high as the other guys. Evans because he's not as versatile in what he brings to an offense, and Matthews in that he's not the dominant physical athlete that Robinson is. Both would be outstanding choices for the Bills, but I'm not sure that they would be willing to trade up or trade quite as much to pick up one of those guys.
All right, well, it's 7:07. We're only an hour away from, the Houston Texans going on the clock after Roger Goodell makes his long walk out onto the stage. Brian Galliford and Matt Warren breaking it down on Buffalo Rumblings Live right before the first round of the draft. Are you watching the NFL Network right now?
It's on in the background, but Steve Mariucci is talking right now, and I'm really not interested in what he has to say. So.
All right, well, yes, we have a high-profile question for Buffalo Rumblings Live from John Warrow of the Associated Press. He asks, what do you make of Johnny Manziel's suit, which apparently has captured people's attention? I am not watching live. You are our fashion expert tonight, Brian Galliford.
Yeah, what gave the fashion expert status away, this crappy plaid shirt that I'm wearing?
No, the fact that you're the only one, literally the only one watching.
I did see Manziel's suit. There's a Deion Sanders circa mid-1980s on right now. He's considerably better looking in his attire than Johnny Manziel was. A suit's a suit. It was grayish silver. That's really all I remember about it.
Well, there you go. Brian Galliford, noted fashion expert, owner of many hooded sweatshirts. It was gray. There you go, John Warrow of the Associated Press. We talked about moving up into get one of those elite players. What about moving down if they miss out on those elite players and they get someone to trade up into that spot, whether it's for Odell Beckham or maybe even one of the quarterbacks or something like that? Do you see a scenario where the Bills would be like, yeah, I want to trade down, say past, I don't know, right where they went last year, number 18, 19, somewhere in that range?
It's certainly possible. It would be nice. I think they have more than 2 holes that they would like to fill with starters. And if they pick up an extra second-round pick like they did last year, they could do it. They could. I mean, the draft is considerably deeper than it was last year, and they still found 3 starters at the top of the draft. I think they could pull it off. The question becomes whether or not someone is willing to move up, and I think that's why the Bills have been. It's at least part of the reason why the Bills have been floating names like Beckham and Zach Martin at Notre Dame. Their interest in those prospects may be legitimate, but it's legitimate from other teams below them as well. So the Bills may look at the cost of taking one of those guys who they like, or moving down a few spots and taking someone else that's pretty closely graded to one of those players. They've kind of been floating the hot prospect names out this week, and I think that's probably by design.
I think it also would take into account who's picking behind the Bills, and the Titans are right behind the Bills, right? I probably should have pulled that up if I was.
Detroit is right behind the Bills.
Detroit. Okay, so Detroit looking for what, a wide receiver? Is that what I heard from them earlier today?
There has been a lot of speculation that they will move up or will consider moving up for Sammy Watkins.
Okay, but the Titans looking for a quarterback after that. Maybe someone wants to trade up ahead of the Titans to get a quarterback. That was a suggestion from, who was it? Colorado Rob on Twitter, that they wanted to move past Tennessee for a quarterback. So you guys can, of course, tweet us using the hashtag BRLive, or you can go in the comments section. And apparently people can't see me on our Google Hangout. So that's a Galliford problem tonight. What are you going to do, Brian?
I don't know. This is your show. I don't know how to fix this.
Yeah, but you're the one that's controlling it.
I'm well aware of that.
It's live. It says it's live on my end.
It's definitely live.
Oops. Let's see here. I don't know what's going on.
Some people have just been staring at me like the whole time.
Well, they say that no people can. Oh wait. Aw. Sergeant Major Thor just posted a puppet and said, "This is what Matt looks like." Aw, that's mean. All right. Well.
I have no idea. I have no clue how to fix this.
I know my camera's on. It's showing me a little picture of me. Do you see the little picture of me?
I can see you.
Am I popping up on the main screen when I talk, or no?
No. Okay,
that's probably it. What's going on? This is weird. Oh well.
This is what happens when you make me run the show.
Hey. Sorry, I mean, you're the one that's got buffalorumblings@gmail.com. That's your thing. This is just good radio right here. Good. Well, for me it's radio. For you it's TV. There's a joke, guys. It's okay. Nobody needs to see me. All right.
If anyone wants to know what Matt looks like tonight, pretty much just picture me, but with Matt's face.
The beard.
Because
the beard,
less facial hair, but the same color shirt. And, I mean, that's why I tweeted out the hashtag Twinsies, because we literally are dressed pretty much exactly the same tonight. It's a little embarrassing.
Yeah. Do you think it's a red flag that Eric Ebron got engaged today?
Is that a serious question?
Yes, it is. From NJT34.
I think it's awesome. Good for him. He's happy.
So he gets engaged, and the whole point of him getting engaged today is like it's the biggest moment of his life, all this other stuff. So, honey, we just got engaged, and now I'm going to go away for like 2 days because I'm getting drafted in the first round, and they're going to want me to go to their city. Does she get to go with him at least?
If Mario Williams can fly his then-fiancée into Buffalo before he signs a contract, I'm pretty sure Eric Ebron's fiancée can go wherever he's drafted. He better take his mom with him, too. It's Mother's Day weekend.
Okay. I don't know. He better take his mom with him. I don't know. I'm still trying to fiddle around with this camera thing. It doesn't really matter. Okay.
I mean, it does if they're staring at me this whole time because I am super self-conscious.
Oh, guys, everyone point and laugh at Brian. Dan Rock, noted draft enthusiast Dan Rock, wants to know, of all the names you've heard as potential first-round picks, what is the one name you don't want the Bills to draft? And he said, you can take out Taylor Lewan.
Oh.
So outside of Taylor Lewan, who we know most people don't want to draft, what's the one name you don't want the Bills to draft?
I'm thinking about the people that came in on pre-draft visits. I would probably go with Kyle Fuller, who is, again, one of the hotter names in the draft, might be the first cornerback taken tonight. But the Bills have more pressing needs than corner, especially if Corey Graham is staying at corner. So he might be towards the bottom of my list. I think Fuller's a better prospect than Zach Martin, but Martin would make more sense for the team tonight. So I'd probably go with with Kyle Fuller. Who would you go with?
I don't know. Part of me would be like super excited and glad that they took a quarterback if that's really what they were sold on. Um, I, it'd be hard for me to approve of them going quarterback back to back in 2 straight years. So I'll say any of the quarterbacks. Whoops.
That's a cop-out answer, but fine.
It is a cop-out answer. What do you want from me? I mean, you just went about positional need. I'm going positional need. I don't think they need a quarterback. You can only play one. You can't ride 2 horses with one butt. So you can only play one of those guys.
Okay.
Why are you spending 2 quarterbacks?
Where the hell did you pull that phrase from?
Oh man, I mean I'm married, so I've seen Sweet Home Alabama before. You know, with Reese Witherspoon and that other guy that was in a couple movies, and then McDreamy guy. I don't know. My wife likes that movie.
Oh, Patrick Dempsey.
Yeah, there you go. Yahtzee.
Yeah, I watch Grey's Anatomy. Deal with it.
Wow. This is just the best episode of Buffalo Rumblings Live we've ever had, guys. We're having camera issues, and now we're talking about romantic comedies, and anyway. And there's a Billy Fusillo reference in the comments section. It's devolving very quickly. I'm going through all these comments in the thread, and just all of them are about like people's moms and girlfriends and stuff. I mean, man, these guys, the guys that are in our comments section, we love them. Oh, here's Mindbender14. What the heck is with Brian's beard? I'll let you answer that.
I don't understand the question. It's a beard.
Brian didn't have to go to work today.
Correct, or yesterday. And I'm a bachelor.
Brian has been devoted 24/7 to covering the Buffalo Bills draft, guys.
I also got a new television and a new soundbar that I hooked up. That's pretty much been the last 2 days for me.
Nice. And, yeah. He also hooked up his HD camera so you can see him extra close tonight when you can't see me. Because I'm not
Just
on
giving
the
the
video.
people what they want.
True. It's so weird. Okay. Okay, here's one from Roberto Luongo. I don't think it's actually Roberto Luongo, but that's his username at Buffalo Rumblings. If the Bills stay at 9, who do you think they could get who would have the best chance to start at day 1? The easy answer is, well, probably everyone that they pick at number 9 is going to start on day 1, right? So let's ask that question a little bit differently. What player could they take at number 9 overall that wouldn't start on day 1?
Man, good question. Kyle Fuller would be a good answer for that again. Their starting cornerbacks are set. You could make the case that Odell Beckham might not, but I think he would. I think he would walk into the building as the most talented receiver on the team. And I think he would end up putting someone down into the 3 or 4 role, probably Mike Williams. So, yeah, I mean, pretty much anyone else they're looking at is going to walk into the starting lineup. Their needs match up sufficiently with the talent at the top of the draft that they're probably going to walk away from this evening with a starter.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I mean, if you want to say that Scott Chandler is going to be the nominal starter at tight end if they draft Eric Ebron, which I don't even know if you could say that.
You couldn't. I don't think you could.
I mean, Ebron's certainly going to be getting as much playing time as Chandler will. Certainly, even if Chandler's out there for the first snap of the game or something like that. So maybe it's a run play and Lee Smith and Scott Chandler are out there. Does that mean Lee Smith's the starter? No, absolutely not. So it maybe nominally in that regard. This has been a theory that's been going around a lot in the last few days when the trade-up talk started a lot. And Sergeant Major Thor asked, do you guys believe the thoughts that Doug and Doug, meaning Doug Marrone and Doug Whaley, may really gamble hard and trade up in this draft because they fear that for their jobs if the new owner is unhappy? Do you think they're going to gamble their future away for the present to impress the next owner of the Buffalo Bills? I'll let you answer first.
No, but it's easier to say that now that people like Joe Buscaglia and Tim Graham are putting reports out there indicating that they won't. I would not have been surprised if they had done that. I still won't be if they do. I think the speculation that they need to make the playoffs to save their jobs is accurate. A new owner is going to come in, and if there's not, if there is still a playoff drought that's in effect, then he will probably be much more inclined to clean house than he will be if the playoff drought was heroically ended by this regime. So I think there probably is a greater sense of urgency, but I don't think that either Whaley or Marone are the type to react in such a way that they would hamper themselves down the line.
The timing of this, I think, is very interesting because if the sale is going to go through very, very early, as has been speculated in multiple places, and it does go, say, over this summer or even in the fall, I think you're exactly right. But if, for whatever reason, this process drags out and, say, a new owner doesn't get installed until next March's owners' meetings, I think you might have a different, there might be a much different perspective. They might get one more off-season to kind of see what happens, because coming in March, even though the whole thing will have been set up before that, coming in March, they'll be behind the eight ball, certainly for the draft, even if it is in the middle of May, as some have speculated. I just think that the timing of the whole thing can really matter as far as whether they get one more draft after this one, playoffs or not. Because I don't think that they'll be replaced next offseason if they don't make the playoffs, unless a new owner comes in and really wants to do that, which wouldn't surprise me at all, of course.
And I think the odds of that happening, of them being replaced next year, increase dramatically if there's an owner in place and approved by the league in October, as has been reported as a possibility. Then at that point, the owner will have had time to be in the building for 3 months of the season and the early portions of the off season, and he will have a fairly good idea of what that front office looks like to him. And I think he'll have a lot more just in terms of having seen how the operation runs to make a decision with, and I think that would accelerate the timetable on that.
Mm-hmm. Dan Rock again. Who's your favorite sleeper prospect in the whole draft? Sure, go for the whole draft. You just said it in the draft. I don't have any sleepers because I'm not a draftnik.
Man, come on, Dan. I don't study it as hard as Dan does. I was partial to a running back prospect before Dan mentioned him, so I'll give myself credit for that because pretty much everyone else I've heard of is a guy that Dan has talked about. I like that Isaiah Crowell kid, who was an SEC recruit, one of the highest rated running back recruits coming out of high school. He transferred to a JUCO. He's a super talented kid. Will be a mid to late round pick. Probably he may go undrafted, but I doubt it. I don't think the Bills are in a position where they want or need to draft a running back early enough to have anything other than a project on hand. I mean, Fred Jackson and C.J. Spiller are going to handle the backfield. So if they can get a project-type runner like Crowell, who has upside and who doesn't have to play right away, I think that'll be a good fit for them. And he's a guy that I have in mind for Day 3, Saturday.
Okay, well, see, that's a way better answer than I could have ever given. All right, now I just have to scroll through this stuff. All right, so the other big thing that we haven't really talked about today or tonight is the Stevie Johnson trade rumors. If the Bills trade up and get Sammy Watkins or Mike Evans, do you think that they would try to recoup some of the picks that they lost to move up by trading Stevie Johnson?
Well, again, that's an easier one to answer now that Joe has said that they will, or that they would at least seriously consider it. And, yeah, I mean, that's been speculated for months, even before the Bills traded for Mike Williams, and even before people were talking about potentially taking a receiver in the top 10. People were doubting whether or not Johnson would be here long term. And Joe put it correctly when he said any move like that, a top 10 wide receiver, would just accelerate the timetable for Johnson's departure.
Do you think they could move him, though? What would they get back for him?
If they could move him, someone is going to have to really like him, number one, because his cap figure is, I believe, $8.5 million. You would know better than I think.
It's above 8. I was actually looking it up as you were talking.
Okay.
It's 2014. It is 8.5. Yep.
$8.5 million, which that's a lot to take on.
Yep.
And the other thing is, I mean, they just traded for a veteran receiver with remarkably similar statistical production to Stevie. I mean, Mike Williams has, they're in sort of the same wheelhouse in terms of how they're perceived as receiving talent, starting level, but probably not number one. And, there was other baggage to consider with the Williams trade, which is why he was on the block to begin with. So you would imagine that the Bills would not be able to pick up much more than what they got when they flipped for Williams, which was a 6th-round pick. You would weigh the cap ramifications for taking Johnson on against Williams off-field stuff, because Williams is less than $2 million this year in terms of cap hit, so the Bills had a low risk, so they were assuming risk someplace and taking it on other places as well. So there's kind of a wash. They might be lucky to get a 6th-round pick. And the way I kind of rationalize it is, if they take a receiver in the top 10, they're not replacing that. They're not replacing Stevie Johnson with that receiver. If they take Odell Beckham, they're not replacing Stevie Johnson with Odell Beckham. They will have already replaced Stevie Johnson with Mike Williams. And I consider that a downgrade just because of the off-field risk. But that's just how I view it, because, I mean, they were always going to have Robert Woods as part of the rotation. They're going to have the top 10 guy as part of the rotation, and they will have, therefore, then swapped Johnson out for Williams.
Okay. Dan Rock, of course, asked as a follow-up to Ron, who asked that question in our comment section, do you think Spiller could be traded? We haven't heard anything about Spiller. What do you think?
We actually have heard something about Spiller. I think it was Philadelphia that tried to trade for him earlier this offseason. I think that's relevant because it shows that there's interest, that people are aware of his contract situation, and that his skills are coveted at the NFL level. All indications from that initial report are that the Bills quickly showed that they weren't going to move Spiller. So I think that would probably carry over to this weekend, unless they do something like trade down and pick up an extra second or an extra second and a third, and then can draft a running back that can play right away. There are some smaller athletic scat back types that could play right away in this league, and they could replace Spiller. But I still think that would probably be a remote possibility. I think they like Spiller sufficiently that they won't really think about moving him this weekend.
Okay. Geez, the people in our comment section. How many cords of wood are you gonna go into the backyard and chop after the show?
0.
Okay. So earlier we heard that the Texans weren't going to be trading the number 1 pick from Adam Schefter, and our Battle Red blog, our Texans blogger, also said the same thing. Now, PFT is reporting that the Texans could trade the number 1 pick while they're on the clock.
I believe that was an Ian Rappaport report, by the way, not a PFT report. Maybe they're reporting.
Well, that's what Ron from New Mexico said. I was just trusting our readers. So, do you see the Bills being in play for that number 1 overall? You said it would take a haul, but we never really talked about it in particular.
No, I don't think they would. I mean, that's one of those where they would need to flip next year's first, maybe the 2016 first, this year's second, and maybe even something like swap thirds to get that done, and that's just ridiculous price that I don't think even a desperate to save his job Doug Whaley would make. It's for all of the reasons that I've already talked about earlier. I just don't think that's feasible. If for some lightning strike probability they do go up, I think they'll probably target a defender for reasons that I talked about on the blog today, but I don't consider it likely at all.
All right, so as Joe P asks, what's the sweet spot? Where's the sweet spot if they do trade up? Where could they move if not 1?
That depends, I think, entirely on who's available. They might be more inclined to move higher for a guy like Clowney, like maybe up to 3 or 4 if he somehow managed to get that far, which, again, it doesn't look likely. Maybe 3 or 4 for Watkins. If they were looking at a Robinson, maybe a 5 or a 6, which that's still a move that I would hate, and I know you agree with me, Matt. Maybe you should riff on that for a minute.
Trading up for an offensive tackle when there are so many good offensive tackles on the board seems like a waste of other picks where they need to build depth through the rest of their team. I mean, if they have to trade, say they trade even a third rounder to move up from 9 to 6, say, to draft Robinson, then they're losing the ability to add, whether it's a safety to compete to replace Jarris Byrd or a guy to back up Brandon Spikes, because I certainly don't want Ty Powell being the only guy back there behind Brandon Spikes. I think it really would hamstring them in the depth building department. And Doug Whaley can say that there's no holes and they can draft best available player all they want, but they might not think that there's any holes in the starting lineup. There are certainly holes all over this roster on the back end, and they really need to address those, not just for the special teams specialists and all that crap. They need to get guys to fill in, and those later round picks that you're going to be using to trade up, even 2 spots to take a tackle, when you're going to gain, 1 play a game, 2 plays a game from Robinson that you might not get from Matthews, even if that turns out to be true. I'm opinionated about that, yes.
It's nice when Matt's opinionated. Yeah, I agree completely, by the way.
Does Marcel Darius' arrest change our draft plans?
I don't know why it would. It's from Joe. Hi, Joe.
Joe P. Yeah.
No, I don't.
You mean they're not changing their draft board a day and a half before the draft because one of their guys gets arrested and might get suspended for 4 games?
That would strike me as equally reactionary as worrying about their jobs a year from now. Darius
I think it would be even more, Matt. I think it would be even more.
Yeah, it would. In ways, it would. Darius is under contract. They just exercised his 5th-year option, which is not guaranteed. So they're not on the hook for that. They can cut him after this season and have that money without it hurting their cap next season. So I think they'll just play this out as they normally would have, see if Darius can get his crap together next year and move on from there. I think, that they're so, they have so many needs in so many key places that I don't think they're going to worry about that position this weekend.
Okay. So let's just talk generalizations. In the first 2 rounds, in our mock draft at SB Nation, you had the Bills going, you say it. Who'd you have them going with in the first round, and who'd you have them going with in the second round?
The first-round pick was Mike Evans, the receiver from Texas A&M, and the second-round pick was Jimmy Ward, the safety from Northern Illinois. And I think I haven't actually gone back and checked because I don't really care, but I think those picks pulled in the highest approval rating I've ever gotten for 2 picks, which is not saying much because people generally hate my mock draft picks, which, again, I don't really care. But it was nice. It felt good to not be just completely torn to shreds for once, so thank you all for that. I appreciate it. Those are not – it's entirely possible that they don't target those positions in the first 2 rounds at all. I think they're looking much more heavily at receiver than they are at safety.
Okay, Ron from New Mexico just shared links proving that he was correct, that PFT was reporting it, as well as maybe Ian Rappaport was as well.
Good. Yeah, I saw Ian Rappaport say it on TV, so.
Oh, that's why. If they go wide receiver and tight end in the first 2 rounds, that's from Kyle Socker. First of all, that'd be a lot of help for E.J. Manuel. How do you feel about Juwan James out of Tennessee? I would assume that Kyle Socker 04 is asking about drafting Juwan James in the 3rd round. How would you feel about going offense with the first 3 picks?
I'm fine with it. They need
Do you like Juwan James?
I like Antonio Richardson more than I like Juwan James. But, I mean, if they want to go offense with the top 3 picks, you would assume that they would get 3 guys that can play right away, and E.J. Manuel needs as strong a support system as they can supply him. So I would be totally fine with that approach.
My name is Matt Warren. You can't see me tonight, but you can see Brian Galliford. He is the editor-in-chief at BuffaloRumblings.com, and
Matt Warren has been banished from site this evening.
I've only been banned from one SB Nation site, and it's the Browns site, Dogs by Nature.
Man,
and
I will call that was awesome.
I wasn't mad. It was just like it seemed.
Mad.
I don't know. It seemed kind of pointless at the time because I turned out to be right, by the way. I went over there when the Bills were kicking the Browns' butt, and I said, guys, it's going to autocorrect. Because there was like a tire fire in their comment section. I'm like, guys, it's going to correct itself. And I got banned for that. And then what happened? The Browns came back, they beat the Bills, and I was right, even though I was disparaging my own team.
Yeah.
Literally. Anyway, I'm not a member of the Tennessee Titans blog either, so we'll leave that there.
That one's much fairer.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask this next question, and then I'm going to hop off this Google Hangout while you keep talking, and then I'm going to try to hop back in to see if I can get my my camera to work. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
You think?
I believe in you. You
Maybe
don't
I
have
should
to do
hop
anything.
into the thread real quick first, so I can just pick out some comments before you leave, just in case.
Dude, it's gonna. I'll be fine.
Come back.
So. Okay.
Ask the question.
Sergeant Major Thor, who do you want the Bills to draft, not who do you think the Bills will pick? Is that a good question to leave you for like 30 seconds on?
No.
Oh, okay.
30 seconds. 30 seconds. I could probably swing 30 seconds. Yeah.
All right. Go.
Do a little gym, Mr. G. All right. I think that the article that I published earlier today, which discussed the top 12 people that I consider, I think the way I phrased it was, going down the list, I would be more surprised and maybe even more dismayed if the Bills picked them the further you got down the list. So I'm going to open that real quick because I can't remember it exactly. But those top 4 guys that I mentioned earlier, Robinson, Watkins, Clowney, and Mack, they're the top 4. And then those pseudo-elite guys, Matthews and Evans, they're probably gone too. So I'm going to talk specifically about 7 through 12 on the list, those being C.J. Mosley, Odell Beckham Jr., Eric Ebron, Kyle Fuller, Zach Martin, and Ryan Shazier, who might be my favorite player in the entire draft because if you haven't watched the kid play, he's a freak of nature. He ran an unofficial 4.36 at his pro day back in, I think it was late March or early April. He actually was injured during the combine, and I believe he injured himself on that run as well. So take that into consideration. He's kind of the new wave linebacker in the NFL, just in terms of he's a fast downhill run and hit player that can stay on the field all 3 downs. He can blitz, he can cover. He's good against the run, even though he's not the biggest dude in the world. Teams are going to covet his skill set because he is uniquely athletic for the position, and he can just do a lot of different things. He opens up a lot of schematic possibilities. So he might be my favorite. I personally like him more than C.J. Mosley. I just think he's a more dynamic player. Either of those 2 guys would be good fits. I think that I would probably land in Ryan Shazier territory. He might be a guy that I'd want him to trade down 4 or 5 spots to pick up just because his value as a top 10 pick is a little iffy, but he is one of my favorite, if not just my favorite prospect in the draft, and I would be thrilled if he landed in Buffalo.
All right. Well, I'm back, of course. I still can't get my camera to work. I don't know what's going on with it, but it's something on my end. It's not Brian's fault. It's my fault.
For once!
Yes. Bills of Erie asked an interesting question in the comments section. I still think that staying put at number 9 is the most likely scenario that could happen with the Bills. They've only traded up once in their entire 50-plus year history in the draft, and that was in 1982 before either of us were born. They've obviously traded down more frequently than that, but they've stayed put even more frequently than they've traded down. Of the options, trading up or trading down, which is more likely this year?
Oh, trading
That's
down.
Bills of Erie. You said trading down?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's more likely for every team in the NFL because teams are much more amenable to the idea of gaining draft picks than they are to giving them up. So, I mean, trades up are not uncommon, obviously, but they're also not especially easy to pull off. So, I mean, if teams are fielding calls for their pick, they're probably feeling much better than they are when they're trying to trade up. So I think it's far more likely that the Bills trade down.
The big news out of Radio City Music Hall in the last hour since we've been on here is Roger Goodell doing a little interview. I think it was with ESPN, saying we want to keep our teams in their current markets. Bills fans have demonstrated their passion and support of that team, and he said that Ralph Wilson Stadium, and he said a new stadium, not improving Ralph Wilson Stadium, was the answer to keep the Bills in Buffalo long term.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most recent news we have on the Bills. What do you think about a brand new stadium in Western New York? Just give some brief remarks on it, Brian Galliford.
I would love to go see it and watch football in it, and I shudder to think about how much I'll be paying to do so.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest sticking point is the new Minnesota stadium is being funded without personal seat licenses, if I'm not mistaken. And if Buffalo could get something similar to that, maybe if they have, say, a smaller stadium, same number of luxury boxes, but maybe instead of having, I don't know, 70,000 seats, they have, I don't know, 55,000 seats or something like that. It might be a way to the prices of the tickets certainly will go up, and you'll have to deal with that if you're going to the games. But it might make it a little bit easier to stomach for casual folks that go once a year or something like that.
Yeah, and I almost think they'd have to have the PSLs out of the picture because, I mean, how many season? It would crush their season ticket base, I would think, just to have that added layer in there. So I think they'll probably consider they'll consider every option, obviously, but I think people in the Western New York leaders, Cuomo and polling cars and all those guys, will probably prefer to not have PSLs involved.
Right, but they'll certainly raise taxes. The Cuomo, polling cars, all those guys, it would really, really hurt them, I think, politically certainly in this part of the state for Cuomo and for polling cars, his entire electorate, if he was the guy that lost the Bills, even if he would have to give up more than he might want in order to keep them here. I think it'd be not political suicide, but it'd be pretty darn close to that if he let the Bills leave on his watch.
Yep, absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't catch most of that because I was trying to find Johnny Manziel because everyone's talking about his suit.
It's okay, you don't need to catch it. There's nothing for you to respond
to me. Morgan Moses has a killer beard, though.
Is it better than your beard?
Oh, yeah, it puts mine to shame.
Yeah. You seen any more moms or wives or girlfriends or anything?
They're being announced and walking out onto the stage right now.
Is it cool when you're on one pseudo television show to talk about another television show that's going on at the same exact time?
No, this is horrible. I mean,
hey guys, you should totally no, don't do that.
You're killing me here. I'm waiting for you to ask a question.
Oh, well, I mean, I've run out of questions from the comment section. People must have their fill. Here's one. How many quarterbacks do you see going ahead of the Bills pick? Because it obviously will impact who the Bills have available for them to take.
0. I don't think any will. Or probably more accurately, I don't think the Bills are counting on any going in front of them. It would be lovely. The more, the better. The one who has the best shot is Manziel. Manziel. I don't know how to say his name, but whatever. I think he has the best shot at going ahead of him. But I don't know that that's particularly likely just because there is a considerable amount of risk that they'd be taking. He seems like a guy that teams will target once, if and when he drops out of the top 10, then someone might look up.
I think he could actually be the guy that people trade with the Bills to take. Similar last year, the Rams targeted Tavon Austin, and then the Bills made the swap down to select E.J. Manuel. If someone's eyeing, I think Johnny Football's the guy, whether it's the Cowboys, who the Bills have made trades with in the past, or the Rams, who the Bills obviously made a trade with last year. The Rams, I guess, could trade up and take him if they really wanted to. I just don't know why they'd pass on him at 2 and then trade up from, what is it, 20?
13.
Oh, 13, you're right. Wow. Yeah, that's 13. Not bad at all. They might do that, yeah.
In fact, the Rams have been linked to Johnny Football in the last few days or so. So they actually might be either trying to drum up trade interest for themselves, or if they are legitimately interested, someone may try to leapfrog them, which would put the Bills pick back in play.
All right, here's a question that's not on there. It's a question from me. The San Francisco 49ers have something like 10 picks in this draft, and probably not 10 spots on their roster. So if I were the San Francisco 49ers, I'd be looking to trade up, package those picks to get an elite player instead of a guy I'm just going to cut. If you're Doug Whaley, do you listen to a phone call from the San Francisco 49ers to trade down to, I think, I can't remember where they're trading, but where they're picking, but way far down the first round.
Yeah, they're picking 30th.
Would you entertain that trade?
No, I would not go down that far. Just because they can't afford, I don't think the Bills can afford to drop that far down the talent pool and then rely on being able to move back up for a guy they really want. That might be somewhere where they end up with a guy like Bradley Roby being their top overall pick, and there's so much risk involved with a pick like him, or they could pick some other solid but not like special athlete. It's just that's murky territory. I think they'd rather drop down into the teens, maybe in the 16 range like they were last year, like you mentioned earlier. 30 seems like a long way to go.
Well, that's always been my point for why I think they should pick a wide receiver or even a tight end over the tackle at number 9 right now, because I want them to get a guy that's going to make a difference more than, say, 1 or 2 plays a game. Now, that's not to say that say they take Jake Matthews, and I don't think he's 1 or 2 plays a game better than Eric Pierce. I think he's much better than Eric Pierce, but I don't know if Jake Matthews versus, say, drafting a guy in the second round is going to make or break the difference between a playoff team and not being a playoff team, whereas I think one of those wide receivers or Ebron or one of those skill position players at number 9 could do that for you and put you over the top and get you into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And while we're talking about players that can put you over the top and into the playoffs, if the Bills are going to trade up, which again doesn't look likely, but if they are, that's exactly why I think they would target a Clowney or a Mack, because they are far closer to playoff caliber on that side of the football than they are on offense. I think the idea would be to make themselves as close to elite on defense as they can be, and they're not too far away from being there, assuming everything goes well, and then using just a ball control offense with, Manuel acting as a game manager. That type of outfit could make the playoffs next season. So, to me, that's the only way I could justify, if I were Doug Whaley, moving up that high in the draft, is to take a Clowney or a Mack and to try to take the defense to the next level.
That hasn't been the speculation, just so we're clear. The speculation, if they trade up, has always been, well, I guess Khalil Mack was always listed as one of the guys they could trade up, or if Clowney was
actually more.
Watkins has been the focus of a lot of it, because I don't think a lot of people expect them to trade up to number 1, but maybe number 2, 3, somewhere in that range. Interesting. Someone in the top 10 is going to disappoint. Which of the guys likely to go in the top 10 will either bust or be pedestrian? And I think I'm going to answer this one first because I want to. I think Jadeveon Clowney has a real potential to be a huge disappointment wherever he's picked. He was a huge disappointment last year for his last year in college. I think he has the questions about his motor that could certainly dog him into his NFL career if he doesn't get his head in the game right away. And I think he has got the most. I think, well, maybe not the most likely to bust, but I think he's certainly got the potential right at the top of the draft. What about you? Who might be a bust or be pedestrian in the top 10?
I would go with Taylor Lewan, just because he strikes me as one of those hot-headed types that might just get himself into trouble off the field. He already did it in college, so he seems like a risky proposition as a top 10 pick. Super talented kid. I don't know that I'd take him that early.
Okay.
What other folks are you talking? Did you mute yourself because of your child?
I did. Usually when we do these Buffalo Rumblings live ditties, that she's asleep, but she is not asleep right now.
Yeah, usually it's cats that invade, not Lucy's.
It's okay. She's cute enough. But all right. Let's see. Oh, here's a neat question. Patrick Toper? I don't know. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you wish they had drafted a different position in round 1 last year so they could take Bridgewater or Manziel this year?
Is 0 like me not wanting them to take a quarterback last year?
I guess 1 to 10, so it would be 1. I wouldn't. I want Doug Whaley to pick the guy that he wants to pick, and I really don't care about looking ahead to the future.
That's a good way of doing it. I much prefer a team take a quarterback at the outset of a head coach's tenure than try to do it halfway through. The 49ers are maybe the blueprint for doing that, and they got really lucky in that A, Alex Smith got his crap together and had a really good season in the first year under Jim Harbaugh, and B, Colin Kaepernick turned out to be a stud as a second-round pick. So that's not a model that NFL teams should follow. It's much safer, much more sensible to take the guy, pair him with the rookie head coach, and then move forward with 3 full years of proof in the pudding to see where you're at after that 3-year period.
So, similar question from Jason from Ohio. We've heard a few people, I think Charlie Casserly was the guy, that said E.J. Manuel will be like the 5th or the 6th or the 7th best quarterback in this draft. I think he even said something like 8. He'd take 8 quarterbacks ahead of E.J. Manuel. Are you buying that, or do you just think he's trying to, or just philosophizing to be sensational? That's Jason's question.
No, I think that's actually Charlie Casserly's opinion, but I don't know that I'd put too much stock in Charlie Casserly's opinion.
Well, that was a short answer.
Fiend.
Tim Ellis, an old friend. What's the general consensus around the league on having the draft 2 weeks later? And I'll ask a follow-up question after you answer Tim's question. Do you like the draft being 2 weeks later?
First of all, Karen. Only Tim will understand that. Second of all,
good.
What was the question again?
Jeez, thanks a lot. Thoughts on if they should... Wait, what is the general consensus around the league on the draft being 2 weeks later? I know Doug Whaley's stance, but what are others saying?
Probably Doug Marrone's stance, too. It seems like pretty much everyone doesn't like it, and now they're talking about pushing it back another couple of weeks into mid to late May. It's crazy and dumb. The only person I know of that is into that idea at all is Dan Cater, the SB Nation's NFL draft guy over at Mocking the Draft. He would be thrilled with that because it just extends his... Like, you know how this is the week before the Super Bowl? It just gives him an extra 2 weeks before his Super Bowl, basically. He and probably other draftniks are the only people that I could think of that would enjoy the extended offseason.
How much do you think it hurts, or it's going to hurt rookies as they transition from college to the pros with 2 weeks less preparation time?
I mean, how much preparation time are they getting to begin with? The CBA only allows them a week or two with the team anyway. They still have plenty of time to fit that rookie minicamp in, and they'll be with. I mean, it would just kind of shift everything back. It would cut into the players' vacation time between the OTA sessions and the start of training camp, and it would extend their vacation time between the end of the season and when they report to OTAs. So, I mean, it's just a shifted timeline. I don't think that people would have less time to prepare. I don't think it would affect it much at all.
Okay, as we get closer to 8 o'clock, we're getting more and more questions, which is awesome, guys. I'm glad that you're chiming in. Sarah Billslicken, I don't know, that's a weird name. You loved Kiko before last year. Sarah, it's like Sarah Q's Bills. I don't know.
I heard I know who you're talking about. I've seen the username. Yeah. I thought you said the word licking, like licking, and that's what.
No, that's kind of creepy. You liked Kiko Alonso before last year's draft. Do you have another second rounder who will be second in Rookie of the Year in mind? I mean, the last 2 Bills second round picks have been pretty nice with Cordy Glenn and Kiko Alonso. Who's it going to be this year?
Jimmy Ward. I love Jimmy Ward. I think he's an awesome football player. Of course, you said your mock draft pick. Yeah, well, I mean, I picked him because I like him. He's a guy that people are talking about could go tonight. He's only dropped because he's small. He's not the biggest dude in the world, but in terms of skill set, he has pretty much everything you want in a safety. He can cover in the slot. He can defend the run. He's very physical, especially for his size. He can play center field. He can be in the box. He can do pretty much everything. And that versatility and his range and his instincts and his ball skills, he's going to be a good player in the NFL for a long time. I would bet a lot on it, and I don't think the Bills are thinking about him much, just because they seem genuinely content with what they have at safety, but I would be thrilled to death if he landed with Buffalo, and I think he will, depending on where he lands, I think he's a guy that could surprise a lot of people.
Okay. I hate to keep asking questions from Joe P, but this one's just kind of jumped out at me. Are we really that far off on offense to being elite if EJ ends up being elite this year?
But EJ's not going to be elite this year.
If EJ's elite this year, let's just hypothetical land. If EJ is elite this year, just like pretty much every other offense in the entire NFL, if they have an elite quarterback, the offense is in and of itself elite. And so if he does take, say 4 giant steps and becomes elite, I think, the Bills' offense will be elite. But I don't know if anybody's anticipating that. I don't even know if anyone's anticipating him being good this year.
That's the thing about it. The defense already has several good players. They were a top 10 unit a year ago. And there's not that position on that side of the football that has to be good for the entire unit to be good. I think it's much, tossing aside all the things like how league rules benefit offensive players over defenders, I think it's much easier to build a good defense than it is to build a good offense because you absolutely have to have that one spot settled. And I'm not convinced that the Bills have the quarterback position settled.
I don't think anybody that's being reasonable about it thinks that the Bills have it, to use your term, settled. Anyway. Fiscal policy. You mentioned that Ryan Shazier might be your favorite player in this draft. Why are you so high on him?
Because, like I said when I was talking about him, he's got that new wave skill set. He's sort of the linebacker of the future. I mean, the Brandon Spikes of the world are going the way of the dodo bird, the way of the fullback. To run a defense in this league, you have to have A, versatility, and B, 3-down capability to be, sort of a franchise linchpin, and I think that's exactly what Ryan Shazier will end up being. He is so athletic, so rangy, very, very physical for a player his size. He lays some vicious hits. He can cover. He's got ball skills when the ball's in the air, and he can blitz. He can do everything. I mean, he has the athleticism, the movement skills to play some of that, like box safety. He could do something like that. He's that athletic. Players like that are not easy to find, and teams like Seattle and Jacksonville that run these hybrid defenses that mix concepts and 2-gap and 1-gap principles, they look for players like this because they can fit regardless of where they land schematically. That they're always evolving in terms of scheme, and Shazier's a guy that would fit into a defense like that because he can stay on the field in any system. I really, really like Ryan Shazier.
Okay, well, it's 7:57, so we're running to the end of our show, and we'll take it with Joe Buscaglia. He listed his top 5, or how he thinks the Bills are looking at things tonight, and he excluded Jadeveon Clowney and Robinson because he thinks they'll be gone. But here's his top 5 he thinks that the Bills like in order. Sammy Watkins, Jake Matthews, Eric Ebron, Odell Beckham, and Zach Martin. What would you change about that list, Brian Galliford?
Nothing. I think that's a fine order. I like Beckham a little more than Ebron, but it probably makes more sense for the Bills to target Ebron than Beckham. So I think if that's who the Bills are legitimately looking at, they have the order correct.
All right, and that order was from Joe Buscaglia, at Joe Buscaglia on Twitter. I am at Matt Rich Warren on Twitter. Brian is at Brian Galliford, and of course tweets from the hashtag from the account at Buff Rumblings, because Rumblings has been working out, and that's why they're buff.
And also, we can't be Buffalo because there's stupid character requirements. We're an A short or an O short of being Buffalo Rumblings, and I wish we could be.
We could double what we pay them. Would they consider it then?
You can't double zero.
You can. It's just 0. It's not impossible.
I'm not going to have a math argument with you at the end of this thing. We're not that nerdy.
I think we are. All right, guys. Well, we'll be back tomorrow night to preview rounds 2 and 3 before Friday night's draft kicks off. We'll be here from 6 to 7 tomorrow night. Get your draft questions ready. I'm sure that you'll have reset your draft boards by then if you have draft boards. I don't. I synthesize other people's stuff and just regurgitate what they say generally. Brian, anything else you want to say before we sign off? Oh, we'll be hopping into the comment section of a brand new open thread, which is probably going to post, I would think, here in a minute or two, right, Brian?
No, it's not. I don't have it ready yet. I might just, I'll do it real quick.
You didn't have to admit that.
Give me 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes.
Okay.
It'll be up.
All right, so we'll be chatting with you guys there, but you don't have to see Brian's ugly mug anymore. He's probably going to be on his phone like Adam Schefter, getting off his Bills rumors from a varied mix of sources and internet web message boards and things of that nature. So until next time, guys, go Bills.
Have fun tonight, people. Go Bills.